All right. Good evening, LinkedIn. Dave Wilson of the Ringer Hire Show, and I have my co-host tonight, Kylie Whitley. How you doing, Kylie?
Hi, guys.
She is ready to go. Everybody knows her from last week. Well, actually, it wasn't last. What was it? I don't even know what day it is
Friday.
right
It was
now.
Friday night.
Friday.
So less than
That's
a
right.
week. Yeah.
That's right. So, hey, tonight, everybody, we're going to talk about a great subject, and it is going to be about micromanagement. And I know people out there have stories, so please feel to ask questions, comment, and you know the drill. We'll be right after this video. Right back after this video. God, it's not even Friday. Here we go. Hey, you know what I like about the having my younger picture on there? I've been using the same thing for 3 years. It's kind of nice. You don't change your profile picture, and it doesn't even look like the person. I'm like, damn.
It's like having your license picture from 20 years ago because you just keep renewing it online. You're like, yeah, that's me. I look great.
Yeah, it's true because you're like, all right, I think I'm just going to keep that. And everybody keeps saying, I get asked that too. When are you going to change your profile picture? And I'm like,
I'm not.
Why? It's like a brand, that's got the fire on it like that. So I kind of freaking love it.
Me.
So yeah, right. Geez. So we got Rob's already in the house. I figured I know Rob's gonna have questions on this one.
Hey, Rob.
He just texted me before the show. He said, "You going on tonight?" I was like, "Yeah." Hey, listen, this topic here, God, it ranks up there with the top shows that I always look at the insights I've told you before, and it's always been about micromanagement, ghosting, and like interviews. And it just seems like that whenever I do a show like this, because I take it personal, and I'm going to tell a little bit of my story tonight. I'm sure you will too. But it's such a topic. It's such a topic that people sometimes don't know what to do if they've never experienced, and that is a micromanager.
It can be a very intimidating situation.
Yeah, well, we got Travis was on the show. Wow, it's been a long time. How you doing, Travis? Hope things are well. Yeah, he's military too. But if I was to say to you, what is a micromanager? What do you say? I say ass.
It's funny. Okay, so that is the non-PC answer, and I have plenty of those for you. But it's only my second time on, so I'll try to hone it in here.
Yeah.
But honestly, for me, I think at the end of it, it just comes down to feeling as though you were hired to do a job that you're not trusted to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to have somebody overseeing me in a capacity that doesn't feel constructive. It feels controlling. I am a grown woman. I am doing this job because I'm excited. I'm empowered. I am ready. And that is male or female. We are in this to make a difference. We're a group. Yes, Travis, ineptitude. It makes you feel inept.
No, he's going to use these big words. He knows these words. He's going to use these words, and you're going to understand. Yeah, and I'm not going to know because Travis, I'm going to have to Google that one.
Inadequate. Unavailable to do the job you were hired to do, and I can spend 30% of my day every day explaining to you what I'm doing, or you can give me that 30% back. Talk to me once a week. And let me do 30% more of my job that you hired me and are paying me to do. And for me, that is where I want to be. I think the scary part of micromanaging is that it's seen in a completely negative light. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, I don't want to be micromanaged in any capacity. But some people do.
Well, some people like it. It's not always a bad, listen, you learn so much about it from researching it and what causes it and what, behind the scenes, but it's not always a bad thing sometimes. It can be okay for like a project that you really listen. If you're in charge of something, there's nothing wrong with, overseeing your team. But at the same time, you got, like you said, ring yourself in, because you got to leave it to some part of your team. You have to. And I admit, sometimes I think I had a little bit in me like that. Sometimes, not all of it, not like what it's supposed to be, but I had to learn one thing, and that was listen. They'd always say, Dave, listen. Yeah. And I kind of knew that that's what that meant.
Funny enough, I actually had somebody who interviewed me this week.
Right.
This last week. And one of their first questions was, do you see yourself in a management position? Oof. I said, absolutely. And they said, good, so do I. I think you are set up. You are the person. You are meant to be management. I said, well, I appreciate that. And he said, well, I set you up that way so that I could ask you the insulting question. I said, okay, what's that? And he said, has anybody ever told you that you need to listen better?
Okay.
And I said, yes, sir, they have. It's not untrue. Sometimes I get so excited in my situation that I can talk over top. I can do those things. And he brought me back to ground level. I don't see that as micromanaging, right? Like that's constructive. That's encouraging.
Okay.
So yeah, I find it interesting, but some people might have looked at that as insulting or abrasive, and I think to each their own, right?
I've only known you 2 times here, a couple hours. So Travis says these type of people are unilaterally incapable of doing their jobs, so having an authoritative management style affirms their position. Yes, I agree totally with that.
I'll agree to an extent.
Here we go. Except.
We're gonna go devil's advocate here, because I am 100% the person that doesn't want to be micromanaged, but it doesn't make me feel as though I can't manage a team and have a team member who prefers that level of guidance. If that is what you need, if you need that reassurance, you need that guidance, I'm okay to give that to you. It's just not naturally who I am. So I think it's reading your team, right? Like that's good management. So take micro out of it and just talk about good management skills. Look at your team and read what they need. Some people need their hand to be held. Some need to be left the hell alone to do their job because they're good at it.
They're good at it.
Your team. And then micromanaging isn't the conversation anymore. Then it's just good management.
That's what I like. Rob says it definitely makes you feel uncomfortable. It does. It makes everybody feel uncomfortable.
Hovering, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that in my little story here. Abraham is say, hey, everybody. And then, geez, he's like giving out his freaking phone number.
Yeah, all right. Abe's got it coming out.
Yeah, Abraham, I don't know if I want to put your phone out. Yeah, you'll be dedicated call. I'm going to give you like a short version. Okay. So all my career, listen, I love the military. I can take a lot of stuff. Doesn't matter. Throw it at me. But at the end of the day, you're the boss. You tell me what to do. If that's what you want, I'm going to do it. Always. I've always had that good work ethic, what we talk, and everything was going well. So at one company through my career, I call it evolving. I ran into a micromanager. Person came in and wow, he started opening his mouth to other people saying things. So, but all that stuff gets back to you.
Of course.
So now you're like, okay, what did I do to this friggin' clown, right? So it went on and on and on. And the reason it's personable to me, it's not so much about what that person did, but it's what they did to your health. Because micromanaging, you really, it affects your team. It can affect your team member. You can be pressured really a lot by somebody, and you're going to feel it. You're going to go home. You're going to be in a bad mood. Before you know it, you're going to be yelling at your wife or husband. Before you know it, you're going to be yelling at your kids. Before you know it, you're not going to be able to friggin' sleep. Before you know it, you're going to lose more hair all the time. You're going to lose it because of decisions. Or
it's going to turn gray.
I know. See, I knew I was going to get into this. Because my wife would always say after it was all said and done, and I left because I never wanted to be terminated from a job, never. You really need, I tell people, listen, you need to find that support person. You need to find that HR. You need to find that manager, colleague to talk about. Because if you don't, it will eat you alive. And it brings out a person that you're not. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Yeah, it's environmental, right? So this kind of if you want to go general, it comes back to this sense of osmosis, right? Like you have kids that grow up in environments that, although it's not blood related, it still affects who they are and what they become. Osmosis is a very real thing. And I don't think it's any different going into a toxic work environment. You go in, you spend more time with those people, as I mentioned on Friday. Spend more time with the people you work with than you do with your own family and your children.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, it's going to become a thing. I when I first started recruiting, I would come home and I just wouldn't want to talk.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I'm talked out. It was the same when I had my kids were really, really young. I was a stay-at-home mom. By the time my husband would come home, I was touched out.
Yeah.
Me be, take the children, give me a minute to myself. And so yes, circumstance, environment will change who you are, even with the people who don't necessarily deserve to be at the receiving end.
And then all right, here we go, Travis. It affects culture. Now that's the truth there. I just saw 4 or 5 project management team quit. And 4 or 5 project management team. All right. I'm gonna get this.
Travis, are you saying a 4 out of 5 star project management team?
That's probably most likely.
That's what he's referring to.
Hey, easy on.
Oh, it's not a joke. I'm telling you, the last year of my life, the Grays have come in full force. They're taking up residence and they are not paying rent. Well,
mine just started falling out, and then it irks me because, if I had to do it all over again, and I swore to myself I would never go through that again in my life. But the point when I say about HR, listen, everybody knows I've said this numerous times. HR scares the living hell out of me. They never call you to say, "Hey, Dave, come on in here. You're doing a freaking great job." No. HR, they're just different. There are happy HR people, and then there's ones that are just like, they are stone cold. But I get it. I understand it.
But being called in HR, that is like
they never just say you're not getting promoted. You what?
It's like being called to the principal's office when somebody in HR tells you they want to talk.
Thank you. Travis says 4 or 5 people. He says
4 out of 5 people. Wow.
Yeah. So but
this is what he's referring to here. It affects culture. He just saw 4 out of 5 project management of his team quit because of what we're talking about.
Wow. Can you imagine that? That is not. Woof.
That's massive. I mean, and if that doesn't show you that this kind of culture, this micromanaging, this over obsessive can change a healthy environment into an unhealthy one, I don't know what else is going to. I mean, Travis is giving it to you right there.
Right there. And when you're all done, HR is there for you. And then there's a serious side. Listen, they are there for you. You need to be able to trust HR because listen, if you're going up against your boss or somebody like that, that is very stressful because you're to your livelihood. You've been at the job for a while. It's your health benefits. Everything rolls into that. So you really need to, when people say, what do you do? There's just a couple things. And the best advice for me is you can either knock it off in the beginning. And when I say it like that is, listen, if somebody's giving you a hard time, there are polite ways and professional ways to really sit down with them. Or her, and say, have that one-on-one. Say, listen, this is the way you make me feel. I just want to know, is there something I can do to make your day? Just pour it on. But at the end of the day, it's just such a powerful subject to talk about because they're all over you, like you can't breathe.
Well, I guess for me, that immediately becomes the question on the other side is, what creates that comfort? So if you're in a situation where you're being micromanaged, you feel like you're not in a healthy space, what creates a healthy enough environment even inside of that for the employee to feel as though it's worth going to HR versus starting to look elsewhere?
Gotcha. And there's ways, like you said, you want to work with, and we'll talk about that too, is there's ways that what do you do? How do you work with somebody? Because not everybody wants to leave their work. Not everybody wants to look for another job. But my story, I did go and do that. But if I had to do it again, I would have done totally things differently and very professional because I know what can happen on the opposite end. You really, it's a sore subject. And people, it's people's livelihood, like you said, and it's stressful for them. And it's stressful. Listen, I think a micromanager, I was reading up a lot of, they said a lot of micromanagers have problems with OCD.
Yeah.
That was in one of the studies. And that makes sense, does it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's the need to control, which is also actually very common in ADD and ADHD people.
Right. And that was one of the things I couldn't believe. Like, all right, so OCD. So majority of micromanagers, OCD. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe like you said, like in the military, I mean, I'm OCD, like, because I like things neat sometimes, you know.
But is that orderly or OCD?
I don't know, you know. OCD, I understand what OCD is, but if that could be, I haven't read into it that much to see why that correlates with that, you know. Like
it's a need for control. It's exactly what it sounds like, obsessive compulsive. How do you have time to do your job if you're micromanaging? I think, Travis, that's why you don't get micromanaging until you're at a management level, because your job is to manage the team. And sometimes people don't know how to manage the culture and the workload versus managing the person. And I think sometimes people get put into management before they're ready. Right. And then all they know how to do is tell somebody how to do what they're already good at, right? So you're taking a person on your team and you're going, okay, this is what you should be doing. They don't know how to manage a team. They know how to do the job. And that's not synonymous.
I had a question of there was a couple of times on the show people would ask, can a micromanager change? And I say, yeah, because I call it, again, behavior modification. Listen, if another boss sits down with that person and tells them what they're doing and try to learn from that, some people will take that suggestion and do that. Some of them, listen, that's just, like you said, they're not ready for it. You know, there should be more training with it, I think. I really believe that some kind of training should be in the workplace for that type of work, because this is a big, big subject, you know. Here we go. See, I don't know the word, but apparently she does. So thanks, Travis. You know, I love it. But no, it's a very thing. And some of the things that, how do you know when you're a micromanager? Like when you look for something like this, I was looking, they resist delegating work. They want it done their way. You know, I'm sure you've had that problem before.
Yeah, not delegation being inappropriate. Also, I just looked it up for you. The direct of ineptitude is a lack of skill or ability. It's a direct definition.
Okay, I'm gonna let you announce group. I always say it wrong. I'm gonna see how Kylie says it. Come on.
Appropriate.
Come on.
I don't know if that's how it is, but that's how I'm announcing it. If it's wrong, please tell me. But hello.
I have not seen you in a while, young lady. It's just the first time I've seen her come on the show for a while. Here we go. We got Robert Reed. Have you thought about working on behalf of the job candidate instead of working for one company? A lot of people working for work and need help. So have you thought about working on behalf of the job candidate instead of working for one company?
He's essentially talking about opening your own staffing. And we kind of touched on this on Friday. Yeah, I'm not in a position right now to do that as a full-time option. I am, however, and I think David will echo this. We're very good at what we do. We know we're very fortunate to have large networks. And if there are people who are watching this and are in need, please reach out to us. If we have the right people, if we have the right contacts, if we have the ability to help you, we absolutely will.
I do. And I've reached out to other people. I've always reached out to people on LinkedIn Friends and asked advice, because you don't know it all, you know.
No, you can't possibly. No. It's too vast.
Not at all. Here, Chris. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Chris says, one of the most insightful books I've encountered in this subject area is The Sequel Manager by Travis Bradberry. Never heard of that one.
I haven't either, but I love a good book. I'm an avid reader, so I'll take that into account. Oh, and it looks like he sent us the link for it.
Yeah, he put the link.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, I love reading books on stuff like this subject. Instead of, now that you told me about the audios, you know, that I've learned, but all my trees for my printouts of what to talk about. And no, but he's, like I said, he's put the link on here right on Amazon. Look at that.
Yep.
right there for
Amazon,
them.
you
So.
can catch that book. I mean, I have to imagine there are plenty. I can actually do a little bit of a dive when this is done and post a couple of links to any that I think are relevant to what we're discussing now.
That are relevant. Another one is become overly involved in the work of their employees, discourage independent decision making. That is a big one because I can't picture you. I've only known you for 2 shows, and we've talked during the day, and we've talked a little bit before and after, and everything like that. And for that, discourage independent, I don't think you could work for somebody.
I couldn't.
No.
And the one experience that I really have with a strong micromanager, which I've had multiple, but the one experience that I have where I was a little older, I knew what I was doing, I was in my career, not finding my way anymore.
Right.
It was the one time that I can actively remember looking for another job. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to go down. And you had said like you kind of regret the way that you handled it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
No. I don't. And maybe it's because I had a few conversations, and you and I have kind of touched on this. The young lady who was training me about 3 weeks in left. Right. So, and any talent acquisition professional is going to hear what I'm getting ready to say, and their eyes are going to get the size of Texas. But I ended up running with anywhere between 80 and 100 recs.
Right.
Because they didn't want to. And I was told we are actively and aggressively interviewing for another person. Wow. We will have a backfill for you. Thank you so much for taking this on. And so in my stance, I felt it was amazing, right? Like I'm brand new. They're trusting me with this. I'm proving my worth. I'm learning more about the company. I was looking at it all positive.
Yep.
4 or 5 months in, no new people are being brought in. I'm not hearing anything about these backup interviews. And now my manager is over my shoulder all day, every day. Where are we at with this? Where are we at with this? Because I have such a vast rec load. It's an unrealistic thing for a singular human. But now he is getting heavily involved. And instead of my approach as a manager would have been, this is too much.
Do you think you've noticed? Do you think some of your coworkers noticed that?
No, because we were remote.
Oh, geez. So that's a different. Yeah, that's
correct.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because that's another topic on there because, or do you get micromanaged with that? I could see a little bit more of that, like because you're working remote. I bet a micromanager, a strong one, would have a hard friggin' time working remote. I bet that would be so difficult.
It was obsessive. The amount of video calls that got thrown on, the text messages, the phone calls, it was impossible to do my job, plus give all of the reports that they were asking for. But what happened was somehow in the course of all of this, I ended up running the requisition team for the CEO and president. So of course that takes precedence, right? But when you have 80 to 100 recs, how can you deem any of them as top priority unless you're in a tiering system? They wouldn't allow me to tier. But then they wanted direct reports for that and all the subsidiaries on a regular basis.
Okay.
I can't be that person. I can't do that. And so it wasn't just micromanaging at that point, but it was micromanaging to an unrealistic expectation.
Right. And that's where it comes. Would you, and I bet you, I'm going to put money on it that you would, if you had an employee or some of your team, and you saw a micromanager, you can see it. Employees see it. You know, if that micromanager is after one person or, you know, if that person's after this one, would you say something to the person? Because you can tell if you come into like a meeting, and I'm sure some of them that listen to this in the morning, you know, you have your morning meetings and you have that. There might be that one quiet person. Something's going on. And you could say like something's wrong with her or him. There's a lot. Would you get involved?
On a professional level, no.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that I'm better than that I would put myself in there, but no, I have mouths to feed and bills to pay, and no, I know my place to a certain extent.
I was wrong. On
a personal level, would I pull that person aside and get involved because I care? And because whatever is happening with them, I want to help correct it because it doesn't seem like anybody else is. Absolutely. And now you weren't wrong. You weren't wrong. I spent a lot of years.
And that makes total sense. I know what you're saying there. You're right. Because a lot of people do probably overlook. I'll go with that one. but at the
people
same
also
time
get
on a personal
involved
note.
and lose their jobs.
Right.
Right.
Because you
you
could
overstep. I am a round table mentality. You love that comment. I am so that person, but you have to accept the fact that not everybody is.
Right.
And so I cannot come in and have that round table mentality knowing that my senior, whether that's senior TA or management or director or all of the above, knowing that they do not share the same values,
right,
and then expect to step in and not lose what I have.
Okay.
So I think that there is an extent of self-value, self-preservation, and standing up for yourself. And that is what I think as you age into your career is so complicated, right? Like you want it to be easy, but it's just not.
How am I supposed to respond to all that? How am I supposed to respond to all that what you just said?
There's just not a one.
My mind is going everywhere. It's like, Dave, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I agree with you. Then I don't. Then I do. Then I don't. Then I do. Then I don't. I'm like, wait a minute here. I'm all over the place. I'm going to take you to the part that I realized after everything that you said was I agree with you. Sometimes you're not going to go after that boss naturally. That would be because you got bills to pay, everything like that. And I think I've been in that position, but at the same time, I have gone to that person and said, hey, what the hell is going on? Are you okay? Or what the hell? Or give advice. So yes.
That's relationship dependent though, right? Like in the situations where you were going to that management staff, did you have a good underlying relationship?
Right. If you do.
Right. So take that away. Take that into just a standard situation for a normal employee who is watching something unfold and knows that that it's wrong, that it doesn't work for the environment, but fears for their safety in their paycheck and in their role. No. And then how do you go and how do you create change, positive change, if you don't feel safe?
Right. No, I agree there. My wife would always say, David, you're tit for tat. Because if you get bitter, it took a while to get over stuff like that. Because if you never had something like that happen and you put yourself into there because of your work and your family, and that's what you're thinking.
David, you're muted.
There we go. But I see both points of that, but I had to learn not tit for tat. I had to finally just let it go. Let it go.
I think that's exposure and experience, though, right? Like that's life experience. That's not even
and you grow. And that's how you get people can ask you advice if you've been through it. You know what to do or what not. Some of the other things that they do, and I get all this, is ask for frequent updates, detailed reports on a regular basis. Too much, right? And they want you spend a lot of time doing things that I don't think you need to, but they're going to press it because, again, they're being the manager. They're just in that position. All right, now we got the man. Now we got the man. Drop the microphone, everything right now.
There it is.
Mr. Kenny Dunner. David Wilson, savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you, sir, for sharing your delectable nuggets of wisdom, information, inspiration, encouragement, enthusiasm, knowledge, motivation, guidance with us today and every day. Kenny.
It's just the best string of verbiage coming from Ken. I love it.
He's got to have either copy and paste, or he does that all the time. I see Kenny. Kenny's a great guy.
He's got them all just saved and ready to go. There's no way.
Yeah, Kenny, have you ever worked for a micromanager in your 35 years, Kenny? I want you to think about that. 35 years, Kenny. Have you worked for a micromanager, and how did you deal with it? I want to see what he types back on that part.
I like it.
But like you said, if you go into a place and there's a lot of high turnover, okay, sometimes it is from a micromanager, and it could be a certain manager that people just don't want to work for. And somebody new coming in, that's where it's hard, because when a new employee starts, how do you protect that new employee from the toxic work environment? If you have a toxic work environment and then you have a micromanager and a new employee, everybody's going to talk to that new employee and say this and say that. It's a hard line.
I think that's the scary part, right? Is that
Matt, we're on next week. We're doing a show next week on LinkedIn, and I'm looking forward to it and typing like a madman. I love that. That's true. All right, here we go. What if you had a manager just comes to you only bad times or not appreciate the things you do right? Take that one out.
I think that's common as well. So to your initial talking about people who are coming in, I think that's the scary part as the entry level or lower level, I hate to say that, but employee, is that you can't help them. No. You have to count on the seniority above that micromanager to take care of that for you. And hope that you have the relationship that you can go to them. And that's where just a really healthy work environment becomes valuable. Rob, what if you had a manager that just comes to you only at bad times, do not appreciate things you do right? I have had that more times than I count.
Kenny, I didn't say AI, Kenny. I said cut and paste. I said cut and paste, Kenny. I asked, and then Kenny, I'm still waiting for 35 years at the same place. Have you ever had a micromanager, Kenny? He had to have in 35 years.
Of course.
35 years. You know. There he is.
Going
we'll
back, I've had those managers that come back and they only want to take care of things in a negative light. It's and I think what amazes me the most is those people tend to have the mentality of, well, I'm paying you to do your job. I don't need to pat you on the back for it.
Right. No, that's true.
I think it is transparency, because I have had that with management where I have gone to those managers and said, hey, look, I don't need to be told on a daily basis that I'm doing a good job.
Right.
But just meet me a little bit. When things go really well, tell me they are.
I'm changing, man. I'm changing. I want it every day. I want it every hour. Dave, you are the best. Dave, we love you.
I will text you every day, but I personally
text me every day. You are great. There's nothing wrong. But no, I know what Rob's saying there. I get that. And that's just, again, you know, I really believe that a lot of these things where it comes for training. You know, I believe there should be more training within the workforce for their management team. Because not everybody can lead.
Well, and I think that a lot of people who are very good at their jobs, they can lead, but they don't know how to separate themselves from doing the job to guiding the job, right?
Right.
And so teaching them how to take themselves out of it just enough to oversee it as a big picture instead of an immediate situation is really what it comes down to. As the employee, as the team member, you're accustomed to, I have this to do, and this is how we get the job done. When you get into management, you have 7, 10, 20 people underneath you, and you're trying to oversee it as a big picture, and you don't always know how to do that.
Kenny, I thought we were friends. We are friends, Kenny. He probably doesn't have a mean bone in his body because he's always so positive. But
you know,
when you like Kenny, all right, he's got like 35 years. You don't find many people that have that many years at a company anymore. That error, you know, that's a long time. So that tells you there that when you put a career in a 30-some years, that's a lot. That's just saying a lot about the company, you know, because you got people that'll stay there that long. But some of the other things that they talk about here is copy. I never had this one happen. I prefer to be copied on every email. I've heard of that.
I've had to do that.
Are rarely satisfied with deliverables. Okay. Suggest unrealistic expectations. And you talked about the expectations. You know, I think that if that's set up front, you know, find that the teams are usually demotivated, some people will rebel. They're only going to do what they have to do to get by. Working with a micromanager sometimes, because how do you keep them away from you? How do you keep her away from you? Either feed them with love or something.
I've actually interviewed and flat out told people in my interviews, I don't do well with micromanaging. And I know this is not a flattering quality about myself, but I revert to being a 7-year-old child. And whatever you ask me to do, I will do the opposite. I don't want to be micromanaged. And I have actually told people that in my interview and then still gotten the job and then still been micromanaged.
My God. And that it goes on and never stops. Here's some other, I like this. Feel that if a task is done to be done right, they should do it themselves. Sometimes micromanagers will do that. They'll just finish the job themselves.
But what does that do for your team as far as encouraging them, helping their personal growth, growing your brand, growing your team, growing your company? If you're just taking it on, who are you teaching and why are you in management?
Yeah, I don't think they realize it. I don't think a person, listen, there is a little bit of me. I told you when I was a little bit younger, I think I didn't listen all the time. I didn't listen all the time as I should, because I was always told, Dave, listen, then talk. But listen to your team. And sometimes I would take a team's idea of a person and I would let them do it when I knew it wouldn't work.
Right.
And then it was okay that they failed. They not failed, but it was okay that they saw. And there's ways around it that you can work with your team. Listen, if there's a person that comes up with some good ideas, come on, you gotta listen to that person.
You should.
Yeah, you should, as long as you can get the work done, right?
Yeah, but you also should be encouraging that team, just like you said, allow them to fail, because then they learn how to pick themselves back up.
Yep. What's this? Kylie, there's a specific industry are you looking to work in?
I'm staying in talent acquisition currently.
Yeah, I love being a recruiter. I love helping people. We've talked about that before.
Anything else?
No, right? Some of the other things here, it's a lot of it. Monitor behavior, activities, employees, focus on unimportant details, insist that all work processes are documented.
Yep.
I will say, if you are going through a micromanager and somebody, you need to write things down.
Document everything.
And I had a girl that I worked with, and she was a good colleague, and she would always be like, now it's time to prepare for war. That's what she said. Prepare for war. I was like, you wrote everything down, because when you got into that meeting, they wrote it down. And if you don't,
they were prepared. By the time they pulled you in, it was because they did their due diligence. So you better have it already, because by the time they bring you in, it's too late.
It's too late. And you can come back and say little things at a time, but you really need to find, hey, Daryl, all the way from Texas. How's it going, sir? You'll have to connect with Daryl. He's an awesome colleague too. Okay. He comes on the show a lot. But no, when you're trying to help somebody, I'll give them that advice. Just write everything down, keep it, because it becomes your friend. Because when you can pull that out, when you're in that uncomfortable meeting with HR, you can bring that up. And it's okay to be upset. You have every right. If it's really somebody's after you and they're really trying to make you either leave, like you said, or look for another job, majority of the time they'll try to push you out.
So they don't have to fire you.
They don't have to fire you. And I think that's where it comes down to where, God, me.
Daryl says mentor, monitor, motivate.
Ooh,
it's true.
I like that one.
I like it too.
The 3 M's. I like that, Daryl. Mentor, monitor, motivate. I like that.
But what a disappointing situation, what you're referring to. What an unfortunate spot to be in, where you have to write everything down, where you feel like you're always at risk.
Oh.
It's just, that's not a work environment anybody wants.
No.
And
No.
We have to start paying more attention to the way that our management is managing. We assume that because they did well in the role that we can promote them and let them go. And then we don't look at them when the attrition changes, when we start losing all of our valuable players. Yeah,
when they leave, when you start seeing them, like when, Travis said that about people leaving on the team. That's what happens.
5 people.
Yeah, but they were talking about here, fear of loss of control over projects, unskilled employees on their team, a belief that work deemed superior to their own may take them look inadequate, extreme need for control, domination. We've touched that. This one here, poor self-image and insecurities. I think that comes back to sometimes a micromanager, because like you even said about not having that power, like some of them are really, they want that power, that authority. They thrive for that. We got Chris, one of the most insightful. I think
that's the one that he said before.
Oh, geez, I'm already done the other thing. Here we go. There we go. Does writing things down help you keep your job?
No, and I want to say that, and that's kind of where I was headed to. Rob, thank you very much. I mean, David, you're not wrong. It puts you in a better position. I think it stops you from being fired. Is kind of what that is HR is no longer going to just pull your job out from underneath you. So I guess it does help you keep your job, but it doesn't keep you wanting your job, I guess is the difference. So once that conversation has been had, you've written everything down, you have dotted your I's and crossed your T's, you are safe. But do you want to be there anymore? Once HR is pulled in, once your manager is against you, your team is turned against you, do you want to be there anymore? Even if you're in the right? So yeah, maybe it helps you keep your job, but it doesn't help you help to keep you wanting your job.
No, and I like that. I'm going to write that one down too. Where'd you get that one from? Right up there? Jesus, how?
That good old noggin.
Good. All right. Daryl's like, nope. When at risk, then I'm making an escape plan. Since HR only cares of morale at the time, self-reduction, and monitor and ensure employees. I'm going to leave that up for a minute. And again,
HR's responsibility is not to the individual employee; it is to the company as a whole. And as much as because you said earlier, you need to be able to trust your HR and lean on your HR. And we were a little early for me to get this combative, but no, I disagree. I am HR. I love it. I advocate for my people through and through. But for me to say that I am going to trust that my HR professional who is doing my onboarding, doing all of my things, who has the ability to terminate my employment.
I know.
Do I think that they are there for me? No, they're there for the company. That's their job. They sign their paycheck. That is who they're there for. And yes, I think that there's a fine line. And I think Daryl's right. When you're at risk, you make your plan out, because once they have that in their head.
Yeah. I hate to say it like that, but I agree. It comes down to, you got to make, I like how it says here, HR only cares of morale at time of self-reduction, right there, reduction. I like that right there when I'm reading that, because it's at that time. You could have listen, again, HR is a hard job. I would not, listen, I don't think I could, but all those decisions, especially when you have a lot of people, that's tough. And you got to be solid, because you're there to help both sides. You have to have an HR that is for the people and for the management on both. You have to.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up what Daryl just said, because I'm still disagreeing with you. And so is Daryl. HR is only there to support the company in legal realms. He's right. I mean, we want to believe that. And I think that when things are good, HR is on your side, and they are a wonderful resource and a wonderful tool. But do not mistake a resource for a friend, because they're not. They're employees just like you are. They're expendable just like you are. And they are the ones who will sign your termination agreement if the company decides it.
I'm going to get a couple messages. I know it. I'm going to get a couple messages.
They're not loyal to you, though. And I am an HR professional. Like, I am not saying this in any kind of indecency, but at the end of all of it, is my job to you, David? Or is my job to my children at home whose mouth needs to have food in it? It's not, my obligation is not to you. It is to the company that hired me and signs my paycheck and has asked me to perform the job that they hired me to do.
You're tough. I'm trying to get you. That was good.
It's honest.
All right. Kenny, I like this. Tonight you're so delectable, scrumptious. You know, I don't know where he gets all these words from. Look at him. Kylie Whitley. They were suave. Devin. Look at him. Intelligent, gorgeously handsome looking. And so impeccably well dressed too. Kenny, this is the same suit that I've wore for the last 3 years on this show.
I love it.
I just, oh my God. But
it's growing on the public, David.
You're growing. But I'm thinking of what you said, and oh God, that's a whole show right there. We'll have to do one on HR. HR, because I thought sometimes you thought you had, when you said about friend, and I agree, because you might think they're your friends, but at the end of the day, they have a job. You're right. Yeah. I'm going to agree with that. But I wish it would change somehow. I wish the concept of HR would change. I wish it would change of how you can confront a micromanager within training. I wish employees had a place to vent and not worry about their jobs. Somehow, some kind of formal training that locks it all together, because I don't want to see what people, again, you've experienced it, I've experienced it. It's not a fun thing. And for the younger generation, wow. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say for the younger coming up now.
This is why we see the younger generations changing the current dynamic, right? Is they don't want to deal with this. They have taken stances that I watch my children take stances now that I would have never dreamt of taking. But they have no problem putting their foot down, even entry level, and saying, I'm not going to do this. Okay, Daryl, I'm going to go backwards. So he says this then, after my comment, he said, this then breaks the trust relationship necessary to build bonds.
Okay.
With no bonds, no team. I'm not talking about the team though, Daryl. I'm talking about HR, and that can be misconstrued. I'm not talking about my direct manager. I'm not talking about my seniority. I'm not talking about my teammates. Those people, we are there together. But unless my direct situation is HR, then HR is not there for you. They're there for the company. And they are there for you to make sure that you are meeting with the company in the best way possible. But when everything comes down to it, it's for the company. But I don't think, Daryl, that has anything to do with an internal team environment. Your trust in your team can be the same. I've had phenomenal relationships with my team members and my managers, my seniors, and still known that at the end of it, if I went and told HR that I was going to wear a tank top to work tomorrow, that they're probably going to say something, no matter how close we are. It just comes in. That's not the same. It's not the same. I don't think that those things are parallel.
Kenny, I heard that HR is not your friend.
They're your friend until they have to be there for their company.
Right. And I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to agree with that. This is a good conversation. I just wish it was different. You're zoned right in there. I just wish it was different. But at the end of the day, that's the truth. That's the truth. They're there to protect the company.
I think that there is flex for difference. I do.
We got to have an HR director on here. We have to get an HR director come in on the show.
I would love that.
Whew, yeah. And really, have a good show about what about a good HR is set up for, and to deal with all the scenarios, to deal with, like, what do you do? How does an employee, because I've never seen, like, when I first got hired a company, I've never heard of saying, hey, if you're having problems, I don't even think I've ever even heard of that. Like, everybody just knows HR. That's it.
Yeah.
Go to HR.
So Daryl just said, but why would anyone trust HR when it comes back around to bite you in the behind, especially questioning micromanagers? Daryl, this is why I said in the beginning, I immediately started looking for a new role when I realized that my manager was not something that I was happy with, because I didn't trust turning around and going to HR. I knew that it would go back to my manager. I didn't trust it. And I think that's kind of the hiccup here, right? Is we assume because HR does our onboarding and sends us our offer letter and guides us through the process and makes us feel warm and fuzzy, that they are there for us exclusively.
Right.
And that's the difference, right? Take the word exclusively into account here. They are not there for us exclusively. They are there for us and the company, and how to marry that relationship in the best way possible. But when it comes down to fight or flight here, they're choosing the company, and because that is their job, they're not doing
here. I am trying to protect both. I'm trying to protect both. I just wish it would be different.
And there is nothing negative, though, David. We are not saying anything bad about HR. What I'm saying is they have a job that we are setting an unrealistic expectation to an HR professional. It's not fair.
No, Kenny, I like stirring the pot.
That's what makes sense, Ken.
Yeah, some people like to twist that in there, but no. All right, so I think we learned a lot tonight. I really think we learned a lot tonight, and I'm going to give you a minute, and I'm going to take a minute. Wow, we're almost for 50 minutes. That show goes quick, don't it?
When it's good, it goes.
It goes. All right, so I want to thank everybody for coming on the show tonight. If you were listening tonight, here's your elevator. If you want to. What do you suggest? Micromanagement. What are your views? What would you suggest?
I think just try to take everything with a grain of salt. Understand that they probably aren't doing it because of who you are or because of what you're doing. It's kind of the one finger at you, three back at me mentality. This is something they're struggling with. And it's a part of their personality. Now, if you are in that situation, it's not going to change, or you don't know how to change it, and you feel like you just aren't going to be happy there, maybe it's time to start considering elsewhere, and finding something that does. And then for the people who love it and want that structure and that enjoyment of having that pecking, right? Like, here
Okay.
is what I expect of you every single day. We're going to recap at the end. That some people need that. I'm not saying that micromanaging is necessarily a bad thing, just
Right.
like I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with HR. Everybody has a purpose to fill.
Right.
I think the problem is assuming that everybody's purpose is to fill your happiness. It's not. So find the place that you fit, find where it works for you, and don't worry about that micromanager and how they choose to do their job. If that doesn't work for you, find somewhere that does. You can't fix everybody else. You can only fix your happiness. And I think at the end of it, that's just what you got to do.
Well, you convinced Kenny because he's like, when are you coming back?
I'll be back next Wednesday.
Wednesday nights, Kenny. Wednesday nights with Kylie. She's going to be on the show. My advice is the same thing. It's where I've been through it. Is listen, if you're really going through that micromanager and it affects your health, it affects your family, it affects your children. You can't sleep. You short-tempered. It ruins your weekends. You can't find any joy. Boy, don't I sound happy, right?
But you're so right.
But it is like the mental going to the doctors. And then when that doctor pulls you out and says to you, you need to leave the toxic environment because it's your health. It's your health. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Your health is more important to make that decision of what you want to do. So when you get pulled out of that environment, there's nothing to be afraid of. You're going to find a job. Your life is not going to end. You're going to continue to search for it. You're going to learn from it, as I did in the past. Learned in it to give advice to somebody else that doesn't want to go through this, because it can really, really affect when you start taking medication on top of that. Geez, I should put that big long list.
I've done it. I've been there.
And see that HR, you got to vent to somebody. You got to talk to another colleague. Maybe ask them, hey, how do I get out of this, or how do I deal with? Because there are ways you can deal with a micromanager. There are ways. It's not the end, because it shouldn't be fair if you got 15, 20 years with a company, and it can happen. And all of a sudden wait a minute here. I got 15 years, and now all of a sudden you're looking for another job because of one person.
Well, but don't you feel like if you're in it for 15 years, then you're probably in a position that you can go and talk to somebody internally and say, hey, this is where I'm struggling. I need to make a lateral move or switch teams or, something. You
have something like that.
You have the tenure to have that.
You got to have that, and that backing behind you. When you got 1 year or 2 years, but when you got 5, 10, 15,
right,
you deserve that respect. So on ending, I would just say,
conversation.
Yeah, and come to the show, and we can learn a lot. It's an awesome show today. Thanks, Robert. Kenny, thank you so much, and we'll have an encore invitation to your show. See, you got a friend in Kenny for life now.
So thanks, Kenny. Yeah. I appreciate you.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. And like I said, Kylie's going to be doing Wednesday night shows. We got another great show coming up on Wednesday with her, and then she's going to stop in on some of the other shows too. Pop in as a special guest, and just welcome her here. And there's going to be some good conversations, some good things coming up. We got some great guests coming. We're going to really try to work on some different things for the show and bring some other people in there. I would love to bring, like you said, an HR director in here, something different to have that conversation.
I think that would be a very interesting company, or a very interesting conversation to have.
Wouldn't it? So everybody have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. We have a show on finding a person a new job, and terrible. Oh my! Wait, I want to make sure I say his name
down. Don't you worry.
Look I was just sitting there saying tomorrow night. Oh, Mike Knowles. We're gonna put Mike Knowles back to work. I wanted to make sure I had his last name there. So everybody have a great night, and young lady, I'm going to talk to you right after this.
Yes, sir.
See everybody soon.
Good night, guys.